Hi, and welcome back to the WordPress Edge podcast, the ultimate destination for professionals looking to harness the power of WordPress for large-scale enterprise solutions. I am your host, Landon DePasquale, Strategic Clients Director here at AmericanEagle.com. In this episode, we're going to the edge with driving innovation, WordPress as a catalyst for digital transformations, and I am pleased to be joined by Jary Carter, Chief Revenue Officer over at WordPress VIP. He was also formerly the head of worldwide sales at Magento and the founder of Oro. Thank you for being with us, Jary.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Landon. You sound so professional in that intro. It reminds me of your commercial that I watch on the TV.
How far are we into this? And we're talking about the commercial.
I actually want to bring it up 3 more times, so people should just be prepared for your.
For those who don't know, we did a commercial featuring Meekum, who is in one of our other podcasts, and featuring WordPress VIP. And I was the unfortunate soul who was the face of that commercial. Actually, so I have a fun story for you, Jary. So I realize none of this has anything to do with this, so you can cut out whatever we need to.
No, we're not cutting any of this out. This is airing just like this. We've got to hear this story.
So
this is why people love podcasts. They want to hear about you recording a commercial. They don't care about enterprise WordPress.
So as the commercial got out in the wild and people started seeing it and finding it and that sort of thing, you get the typical like harassment from your friends and all that sort of stuff. But I sent it out to my family and my grandparents to be like, hey, this is something I did, because that's the sort of thing they'd be into. And also I didn't want them to find out about it and think that I hadn't told them, right? That's the sort of thing they care about.
Sure.
And so I sent it, and my grandmother texts me back, and she rates my work on the commercial, and she gave me an A-.
Your grandma?
My grandma gave me an A- on my commercial, and I was like, why was the minus necessary? You couldn't have just said A, or just said, hey, good job on the commercial. It had to be a, here's your grade, and by the way, it's an A-.
What did she dock, by the way? Like, what was she upset
That's
about?
the worst part. She didn't tell me.
Oh,
there was
I would
no
be in my head about that.
There was no like, here are the things that you could have done better, or here's why it wasn't an A+. It was,
I give it an A-.
You got an A-.
You got a little shade from your grandma there.
My grandmother dragged me on my own national commercial.
Can we have your grandmother listen to this podcast and then rate both of us? Because she feels like a lady who is just going to give a very honest rating.
Yes and no. Yes, can we have her listen to this? Is she going to be able to rate this podcast? No, because she'll have no idea what we're talking about.
Well, you already get an A- for that comment.
I mean, I think telling the story publicly is definitely some B or C tier territory. So, all right.
That's amazing that she gave you an A-. That's really, really funny.
So it's now become a family joke, and whenever someone does something, I call it the A-.
You give them an A-.
Yeah. That was okay. A-.
Yeah, it was A-.
So, Jary, tell me a little bit about how WordPress is driving innovation in the digital space.
Oh, well, that's a great question. If you think about WordPress as a product, when I joined WordPress VIP, I've been here for 5 years. When I joined WordPress VIP, WordPress as a product, I think had something around 30, 31%, 32% market share. Now, just 5 years later, we have 43% CMS market share. So WordPress as a product is really running almost half the internet.
Yeah.
To say that WordPress runs the web is a very accurate statement. Yep. And so when you have that ubiquitous of a content management tool, you have a lot of innovation that is allowed to happen, because then developers and technology companies can build plugins, and we have 60,000 plus plugins within the WordPress ecosystem, and integrations, which, there are thousands of integrations that exist within the WordPress ecosystem. And you have a best-in-class content creation and editing experience. And you have this content creation experience that really sort of is simple and approachable enough for consumers, yet has all of this capability and capacity for the enterprise. And that's a really potent combination when you think about innovation. And it's why, as a product, WordPress has so much market share, is because it is so ubiquitous, from the person really just trying to start out on the internet to all the way to the largest of the Fortune 500 companies that are building their digital experiences around a WordPress content creation experience.
I'm glad you started with market share because I think there are two interesting routes that innovation happens around that market share. I think one of them is exactly what you described. Developers are committed to supporting WordPress because it is 43% of the internet. But the other cool piece of innovation is when 43% of the internet uses something, when so many people are involved in that, innovation happens as a byproduct of that, right? Even if you weren't trying, it would happen. And what's cool is then when you build on top of that the work that you guys are actually trying to do to innovate, you get this compounding effect because of how many people are using it.
Yes. WordPress as a product is so much bigger than any one company
Yep.
behind it. If you go to any of the WordCamp events or the community events, there are just, tens of thousands of contributors to the core WordPress product itself and to the ecosystem of integrations and plugins. And it's so energizing to see.
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly situated then for enterprise clients because there are so many people using it and so many enterprises using it. It is now the safe choice for people to choose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the one thing that we at VIP, because we view ourselves as we're the enterprise WordPress offering, and the one really interesting thing is everybody knows WordPress. And generally people know that, there's so much market share with WordPress. 43% of the market uses it. But what is a less known fact is that if you look at the market share within the Fortune 1000 here within the US, uh there's something like 27% market share even within Fortune 1000 companies. So WordPress as a product is ubiquitous, not just for small businesses, but even in the enterprise. There's so much ubiquity that exists within the large enterprise companies around WordPress. And that's where so much additional innovation happens, because you have these companies that are creating these really interesting digital experiences, these large companies creating really interesting digital experiences on WordPress. And it creates aspiration for everybody else who wants to look like those companies.
So it almost sounds like WordPress is uniquely positioned to help kick off these digital transformations for enterprise level clients.
It's definitely how we feel and what we see.
What are some of those ways that you think separates WordPress from a site core or other things that have been traditionally enterprise choices, but maybe don't have that same sort of digital transformation drive behind them?
Yeah. Well, I won't pick on any one competitor of ours, but I will say some thematics that we see are um, this ubiquity of community, right? This ecosystem. No other content management platform has the ecosystem, the 60,000 plugins, the countless integrations that exist. This developer community of tens of thousands of developers that can approach and develop on WordPress. We at WordPress VIP have really created the enterprise ecosystem around that. So we have agencies such as American Eagle that we work with. We have enterprise technology partners that we work with. So there's that. One of the We also really sort of create the underpinnings of security and performance. So we have a FedRAMP authorization. We really take security and performance and governance very seriously. So some of the largest sites are able to run on WordPress through WordPress VIP. And then one of the other really interesting things that we see is this approachability of the content creation experience. So, a good example is we work with Salesforce, Salesforce.com, which is the largest CRM provider in the world, and now works to create their own set of digital experiences for their customers. But they had this was at the beginning of the pandemic. They really wanted to unlock content creation velocity, and they were stuck within a proprietary content management system that was difficult to use. It was difficult to publish. They had very few folks within the organization who really knew how to use the system, and they wanted to unlock the power of their 2,000 content creators within the organization to begin to create really rapid content experiences for their customers. And so they moved through their digital transformation. WordPress was really the backbone of that, the content management system of that, and moved over to WordPress from a proprietary solution and unlocked that content creation experience for 2,000 content creators. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that agility, that ability to get to the market quickly is key, right? That's a huge piece. What is it that makes WordPress so much more agile?
Yeah, I mean, there's one, the content creation experience is so approachable. Anybody that's used WordPress as a CMS really loves it. It takes the best of sort of consumer technology, the approachability of consumer technology, and brings it into the enterprise. That's one thing. I think the ability for enterprises then to create the right workflows and the right governance and the right content creation rules around that simple content experience is really powerful, and it's something that just no other content management system has within the market.
I think it's also easily tailored to enterprise level solutions to fit whatever their needs are,
Right.
right? They're not stuck down this way of doing things. It's flexible enough to hit whatever they want.
Yeah, the flexibility aspect is so powerful, and that's where leveraging the power of open source and the flexibility of an open, flexible content management system is so powerful. I think you hit on such an important element because we see that no two companies have the same type of content experience because no two companies have the same type of customer experience they're trying to build. Salesforce has such a different uh, content experience that they're trying to create and a different level or need around content velocity than somebody like Meekum, who we were talking about
Yeah.
this morning. This idea that, and who's been on your podcast before,
Yep.
right? This idea that they wanted to create this headless Gutenberg experience, that they wanted to integrate with Salesforce, that they wanted to integrate with Algolia for search. We provide that flexibility to really sort of create the best in class customer experience, and that's really where we see it all flow from, is what's the customer experience that somebody wants to create, and then how do we help unlock their capacity as a company to really create that customer experience. And I would say that during the pandemic, creating it, and since the need for best in class customer experiences, especially in a digital world, have become so much more important.
That's that's 100% correct. And I think one of the things that we've seen on our side is a tendency towards the agility and the speed with which an enterprise level customer can come to market, then bleeding into other areas like their ability to collaborate. What have you guys seen on the collaboration side with WordPress?
Yeah, when you say collaboration, elaborate on that.
So one of the things that we've seen, and I'm curious to hear your take on this,
Sure.
is when you have those large content teams, you mentioned a few thousand people at
Right.
Salesforce writing content.
Right.
There is a heavy lift for getting those people to collaborate in a way where they're all working towards the same end and the same goal, right? They can't be doing completely different things. They can't be siloed. How does WordPress help with that level of kind of breaking down those barriers and offering collaboration there too?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and we saw the same. Salesforce isn't unique. We saw the same at Capgemini. Capgemini wanted to unlock thousands of content contributors, and then what is so powerful about WordPress as a product is we actually don't even start with technically what a customer wants to do. And you all know this
Yeah.
because you do so much development work, and governance is such a big part of what
Yep.
you all think about. Um, but we don't start with the technology. We start actually with what's the business process, right? We start with what business process do you really want to solve? We have a large financial institution as as a customer, and we were talking about this earlier, but we have a very large financial institution, and one of the reasons that workflows and governance and collaboration was all so important to them was because of the fact that they, if they misstep in the approval process of publishing content, it could have major repercussions to stock prices, or, insider trading information can get leaked. These kinds of like real business challenges that, can end up being very consequential for companies, in that space. The consequences are so high. And so we really start with what's the business process that you want to create? And then from there, let's back into the technology solution and the workflows and the collaboration and the tools necessary within WordPress to really fit that collaboration process. So then it's backing into what are the access controls? What does the publisher workflow look like? Who has the ability to authorize content? Putting content into production, all of those capabilities, are customizable through WordPress as a product, and that's really what unlocks so much innovation, is because we're not sort of um, backed into technology limitations. You really start with what, because 80% of this is what's the business process that you want, and then 20% of that is you all and us really helping the customer to say, hey, look, this is how we solve that.
Yeah, I think what you just said is key. We are not starting from an opinionated standpoint where you have to do something as a result of tech debt or ways that you've worked yourself into a corner with a certain platform. You start with, what are you trying to achieve? And let's show you how you can do that on WordPress.
Right.
I think that is the power of WordPress for enterprise organizations.
And so many customers come to us with this CMS tech debt, right? Whether it's they're coming from homegrown solutions that just has like we see this, people coming from homegrown solutions. There's a very limited number of developers who actually know how to make any kind of change within the system. A lot of the use cases and workflows that are needed just haven't been evolved because there's so much of this technology debt. And then, or they come from proprietary solutions, which are much more opinionated about how these kinds of things should happen. And so when they come to WordPress, it's just this freeing moment of, wow, like it's funny. We had NBC on a podcast, and one of their CTOs came on, and she was like, we actually love our CMS. Like, who loves their CMS? We actually love our CMS. I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she said. And it's really true, because you really get to create the experience that you want.
And the other beauty of WordPress is that it's always evolving. It's always developing, right? Collaboration is going to get better in the next 2 to 3 years.
100%.
Yeah, I think that development is key.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have so much critical mass of contribution and product innovation that's happening around what is now the industry standard for content management, it allows for us to set the standard for velocity in and innovation in the content management space overall. When we talk to the analysts, they tell us, Gartner and Forrester, they tell us you should be the most opinionated group in the market because you own most of the web, right? Like, so you should be the opinionated force of like how content management systems really operate. What is best in class content management? And that's a privileged position, but it is the position we find ourselves in.
Yeah, it allows for a really unique leadership position for
Right.
WordPress. Are there any industries that WordPress isn't a good fit for based on what we've described?
No, I mean, I think, as you can see by our market share, we love, small businesses. We've gone all the way up to the largest of the Fortune 500. We have done particularly well in media because of the sheer content velocity demands that media companies had or have. And then I think in the pandemic, a lot of other companies took note of that. Like at the beginning of mid 2020, a lot of companies were trying to get content, like really increase their content velocity and sort of look to us. So we really expanded beyond just our media roots. Government is a huge part of our focus. We have a dedicated government team. We have FedRAMP authorization, as I talked about at the beginning of this. And then we work with everybody from technology companies to the largest financial institutions to distributors and wholesalers. So, and manufacturers. I would say, um, we are not we have e-commerce companies. I mean, just the list goes on in the
Yeah.
types of industries that we work with. And that's really because we view ourselves as a platform. We are a content management platform. So anybody that needs to create content through the web is looking at us to help them do that. And that's really every company, government entity, small business out there is really thinking about, how do we digitally create content, and then how do we measure and track that content and track performance and optimize that content and improve that content, which we also have analytics capabilities that allows companies to do that. So we really view ourselves as a full sort of content management plus additional capabilities that really allow you to create better content experiences.
Yeah, there really aren't any industries WordPress is not suited for.
Right.
It's kind of for everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
and we think about ourselves that way. We don't think about ourselves like we've thought about, do we create verticals? Do we have kind of a more vertical strategy within our business? But every time we think about doing that, it's just really hard for us to think that there are groups excluded from that because um everybody really needs to create content experiences. And what we help people do is really create those content experiences at scale.
Yep.
So there's lot of WordPress companies, WordPress hosting providers, WordPress support groups that really do that for small business. And we don't really, that's not our specialty. So we allow other groups to really service that small and even small to small mid-size businesses. And we focus on really mid to large enterprises. That's our sweet spot.
yeah. You've given us a couple examples already, but do you have one that really comes to mind when you think about the quintessential digital transformation that WordPress has been a part of?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I really think that the Salesforce example, um, and similarly the Capgemini example,
Yeah.
are two really great examples of this idea of digital transformation. And that at the core of digital transformation was the need to improve content velocity and the content experiences. And we see that all over. Like that is a very representative use case that we see in the market. So whether it's Meta trying to do that, whether it's Salesforce trying to do that, whether it's Capgemini, whether it's Al Jazeera, whoever it is, like this is something that we just generally see in the market is companies come to us because they're really trying to improve content velocity and the content experience, not just for their internal teams, which a lot of them are trying to do, but they're trying to unlock their internal teams so that they can get content out into the market faster and relevant information to customers in a timely manner.
So I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that in both the Salesforce and Capgemini examples, uh, WordPress is probably a portion of a larger digital platform that
Yes.
there was all sorts of other integrations and third-party pieces that all played into that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the Meekum example we
Yep.
talked about, right? There's this idea of there's a Salesforce integration. There's an integration with the search product. There's integration even at Salesforce or other companies. We see things like, integrations with digital asset management, integration with personalization engines, like integrations with customer data platforms, e-commerce companies. There's so many of these integrations that happen, and we love that, right? Because we don't want to be the all-in-one monolithic solution. That's not our goal. And we think for every one customer that wants that sort of all-in-one, one provider, we think there are two or three that really want to think about it not from who's our all-in-one provider. They think about it from what is the customer experience that we're trying to create, and then how do we adopt best in class technologies to create that customer experience, and then how do we assure that the integrations um, are are the integrations that we want, and that we have the right integrated capabilities to create that best-in-class customer experience, that exact customer experience that we want to create. And what we found, interestingly, is with a lot of those monolithic sort of all-in-one digital experience providers, there's still so much integration and customization that comes with those, and there's just a lot left to be desired by the time you sort of get that cobbled together solution. Versus with us, we think you can create really bring in an agile CMS, really create an agile customer experience that really matches the opinionated customer experience that a company wants to create.
I think WordPress does really well as the beating heart of that digital platform in whatever phase that looks like.
Ooh, I never heard that before. I like that. The beating heart. Yeah. I mean, because content is at the core
Yeah.
of these customer experiences. It really is. It's at the core. It's really getting content in the hands of customers, and whether that's digital assets or the written word or a multi-channel content. Really, content is at the core, and we like to think of ourselves as at the core of digital experiences for sure.
So WordPress VIP is uniquely positioned because you are not WordPress, but you are very closely related to WordPress. And
Right.
so you drive your own innovations specifically for enterprise clients because of who you deal with. What are some examples of some of those innovations you're driving?
Yeah. So we do think about things that enterprises think about. So one of those things that I alluded to was like content analytics. Larger companies, large enterprises think not only about how do we distribute content, but how do we actually analyze, measure, track performance of that content and really optimize that content in a more sophisticated way for our customers. We do that through a company called Parsley that we acquired a few years ago, and that analytics capability is something that we give to our customers so that they can not only produce content, but they can also measure content effectiveness and optimize content effectiveness to make sure that the right content gets in the right hands at the right time. And it's something that probably a small business or even a mid-sized business may not really think about or even have the sophistication to really run and manage. But definitely, if you go into larger, more sophisticated companies, they're not just thinking about how do we sort of throw a bunch of content at our customers. They're also thinking, was this content useful? Was it helpful? Did our customers actually engage with it? How did they engage with it? And so this ability to not just sort of create content, but to optimize, measure, track, and analyze performance is really important. I would also say we're driving a lot of innovation in things like security, with you making sure and assuring that our infrastructure is incredibly secure, tuned to performance for WordPress specifically. So we're not a generic hosting company. We really have optimized our infrastructure for WordPress as a product, and it really shows up in our performance. We host and manage some of the largest WordPress sites in the world, and so there's focus on that. We're really working as well on curating an ecosystem of partners and technology partners that really are creating best in class experiences around WordPress. You talked about this idea that we typically, when we go into a customer, we're not going in alone. We're going arm in arm with other technologies and capabilities. So we work to really work with those types of companies, find the best in class companies, and whether it's digital asset management or personalization or customer data management, these kinds of capabilities, and really work with them closely so that when we go into customers that we can be somewhat opinionated about if they have needs beyond the content management system, what other platforms and tools integrate with WordPress and WordPress VIP in a way that would be valuable and give them a jump start, a head start in what they want. The other thing we do is we're very opinionated about the types of development companies and agencies that we work with. We have a very tight knit group of agencies that we vet heavily, um, that we work with, so that when we recommend an agency like American Eagle, we have confidence that they're going to do great work on behalf of our customers, and we don't have to worry that that we're going to have a great platform for a customer, but they won't have the right agency that can really handle the nuance of a large project.
What's on the horizon for WordPress VIP?
So many things. I mean, I think you're gonna see a lot more innovation with our analytics platform. We're doing more with AI there with our analytics capabilities and machine learning. So there's lots coming there in terms of like content recommendations and just automating a lot of the tasks of analyzing and optimizing content there. So much coming in our analytics product line, deepening that integration with the WordPress core product or with the WordPress VIP product, so that we really have a single suite. We expect to have FedRAMP moderate at some point in 2024, so we're already FedRAMP authorized. We expect to improve that into a moderate rating through the FedRAMP, which is really exciting. And then, we're always looking at companies that we can partner with that are going to improve the customer experience. So, we're thinking about things like headless. How do we work better with commerce solutions? How are we opinionated in those markets? Are there, either acquisitions or investments or partnerships that we need to have that create a better customer experience? I think you're going to see us become a lot more opinionated about things like integrations, and do a lot of development in the integration ecosystem and the plugin ecosystem to really sort of be thoughtful about how we bring in, of those 60,000 plugins that exist in the market, how do we bring in the ones that make most sense for enterprise customers and assure that they're supported in the way that they would expect to be supported? So those are just a few of the things, but I'm so excited about what we're doing.
It's definitely some cool stuff coming down the pipe.
I hope so. Yeah.
Awesome. Jary, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here on the podcast with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again for joining us at The Edge. I am your host, Landon DePasquale, and until the next episode, feed your WordPress obsession. For more information about today's episode and the topics discussed today, check out our dedicated WordPress Edge landing page at americaneagle.com/studios.